Hello, everyone. Incura, the National Council of University Research Administrators, is pleased to welcome you to our webinar on research administration in a time of disruption, the impact of COVID-19 on university research and research management. My name is Mark Schiffman. I'm the managing editor for Incura. Today's webinar is being produced by Incura Global Initiatives, which keeps research administrators and the research community connected throughout the world. Global Initiatives includes webinars, workshops, a global fellowship program, and resources for international collaborations. For more information about our global initiatives and resources, please contact our senior manager, Claire Chen, at chen@incura.edu. As we continue to monitor the COVID-19 situation and its impact on our community, our members from China, Germany, Italy, Japan, the US, and other countries have been sharing their situations with us and how the virus has impacted their universities' research environments. We will have 30 minutes for Q&A after all three presentations. Please type your questions in the question section from your webinar control panel anytime during the webinar, and our staff will collect your questions to share with the speakers at the end of the webinar as time allows. This webinar is being recorded and will last 90 minutes. The recording and slides will be available on Incura's Global Webinars webpage in a few days. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters. Bai Jing is the Associate Director of Research Support and Technology Transfer from Duke Kushan University in China. Stefania Grotti is the Head of the Research Office at Politecnico di Milano in Italy. And Jean Feldman is the Head of the Policy Office at the National Science Foundation. All three speakers have been involved with Incura and participated in many of our educational programs. We understand this is a challenging time worldwide, and we'd like to thank all three of you for your dedication and commitment to the research administration community and for helping us keep the community informed. We will start with Bai Jing's presentation, followed by Stefania, and then Jean. Bai Jing, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Mark, for giving the floor to me, and thank you, Claire, to invite me to this webinar and give me this chance to just introduce these situations here in China and how we cope with the COVID-19 here when we do research administration. And also, I would also like to talk a bit about the research environment and research activities that I have observed during this time of pandemic, and my own personal experience of dealing stress and anxiety in this time. So hi, this is Bai Jing. I'm the Associate Director of Office of Research Support and Technology Transfer here from Duke Kushan University in China. Not many of you may be familiar with my university. So Duke Kushan University is a joint venture liberal arts university based in Kunshan, Jiangsu City, Jiangsu Province, China. It's about 40 minutes drive from Shanghai, and it's located in the Yangtze River Delta region, very close to Shanghai and also close to Suzhou, and about 1-2 hours drive to Hangzhou city. This university was established in September 2013 as a U.S.-China partnership between Duke University in the US and Wuhan University in China. And myself, I have more than 10 years of experience in research administration. I lead this central office here at Kushan University. My office covers the pre-award and post-award management. We also manage all the research-related contracts and agreements. Also, we provide consultation on public policies, and we also provide management and advice on compliance, such as IRB, ICOOC, COI, export control. My office also managed IP and license and venture. And myself also sits in the research policy committee as an ex officio member at Kushan University. When the pandemic started in China in the past January, I would say almost all universities responded very fast to the situation as the situation changed. I would say almost all universities chose to shut down the campus, lock down almost all buildings, and prevent personal contacts as largely as possible. So that actually imposed challenges to the previous procedures that we took here in our daily operations at office. We used to rely largely on the offline procedures, also hard copies of the paper circulating between my office and the research team, faculty, and other departments and offices. Now we have to switch all our procedures from offline to online alternatives. And this is very common now. It is a common practice now in almost all other universities. For example, I talked to my colleagues in Peking University and Wuhan University. They all use cloud office. That is, they rely on their internal ERP system. ERP is the Enterprise Resource and Planning system. We also use WeChat groups and Tencent conferences and webinar. WeChat is a social media app developed by the Tencent. Tencent is like a counterparty of Facebook in the US. So since most Chinese universities rely on the hard copies to circulate, and now they all have this policy that we can catch up the hard copies after the pandemic. Also, we use the text messages and distribute information to the websites, WeChat public accounts. It's like a Twitter public account, and also WeChat groups to distribute, to help connect between the research administration team and faculty, and also the funding agencies. I would say the differences between, for example, my university is more or less like a private university and other public universities, that we use different tools to help connect within the team of research administration and between research administration and faculty. For example, in my university, we largely rely on emails, and sometimes we use WeChat and WeChat group messages, and we choose Zoom to do teleconference. Well, in Peking University and Wuhan University, they choose to, since they have established the ERP system in their own university system, so they can manage their proposals, projects and contracts through the ERP system, and they distribute the messages to the WeChat groups. Particularly for Wuhan University, because Wuhan University is located in Wuhan city. I think most of you might be familiar with the name of this city. It is now at the center of this pandemic. So the top priority, the first priority for Wuhan University and including my colleagues in the research administration, is to ensure the livelihood support for all the faculty, staff, and the students now living on campus. So many of my colleagues in research administration volunteers as a task force member to distribute meats, vegetables, fruits to the residents in all the buildings on campus. Let me see. So after 8 weeks of self-isolation and working from home, I would say the impacts on the research management is quite large. The first is, of course, the ICT infrastructure and software become the bottleneck to control the productivity and effectiveness of communication within my team and between my team and faculty members. The ICT is the technology and communication the term for internet and communication technology. Because the limit of the bandwidth of ICT, it causes a large time lapse when I receive when the sender or the faculty sends me an email or sends me a WeChat messages to the time I receive those emails and messages. So that means that I have to manage the time expectations from the faculty and sometimes from the funding agencies. For example, now I have been experiencing the malfunction of my Outlook. So a faculty member sends me an email with his proposals attaching with the email on, say, Monday. I will probably receive that email on Wednesday. So that actually caused the serious problems of the effectiveness. I may not respond to them immediately. But the third is that the synergy between my team is loosened. My office, all 3 team members are actually working in one large office. So every time we have an issue, a situation that we want to discuss, we just talk to each other in person. But now, because we are separated like 100 miles between each of us, we now have to rely on WeChat messages and emails. The team building spirit is not as binding as what we used to be in one big office. And of course, the process management and operations management in the office as well. Now, let's look at the research environment now changes in China. Because of this pandemic, the research on COVID-19 is now the top priority. I would say almost all buildings in most of these universities are locked up. Only labs in life sciences, for example, virology, pharmaceuticals, are still open, and they have the researchers working days and nights to find the diagnosis and the treatments for this COVID-19. But still, this incident triggers the general public to think about the purpose of research and development. What is this research and development for? The trigger for this reflection from the general public is because one of the directors of China's Central CDC actually went to Wuhan and investigate the COVID-19 in the past December 2019. And then he went back to Beijing and chose to publish his find out in the paper published in New England Journal of Medicine, and not sending out the warnings to the public. So the general public now started to think what would be the result of all those publications for. I mean, is it just for the pure pursuit of research excellence, academic excellence, or should it be for the public good? So this reflection from the general public advances the whole academia here in China to think about what they would do to evaluate, to assess the performance, the accomplishments of research and faculty. For example, we used to use the number of publications, the number of citations, and the SCI or EI rating for a faculty member, and how many patents this faculty member filed in the past years, and how many inventions this faculty member manages to transfer into, for example, commercialization and industrialization. All we talk about is numbers and numbers, and now we want to see the actual social impact of those research results. Well, this is actually a question for us all that requires a comprehensive interpretation of what would be in the research in the short run and also in the long run. It should also be a balance between, say, faculty members want to get his or her tenure, but also he wants to pursue research excellence, but also want to serve the society. Well, when looking back to this period, I want to say that if I wanted to be well prepared and well planned for my office, my team to have a smooth and flowing operations and provide quality service to our faculty, I want to have a really well established and comprehensive ERP system. I would say most of us here in China complain about our ERP system here, and because of the interface, the poor integration of the project management and financial management. Well, if things were normal, if this pandemic would not occur, At this time, my university we're discussing an ERP system with several vendors. I would say it would be a good chance for the university to look into the ERP systems that have already been used in some multinational companies with the heavy research components. I would say their ERP system has a really, really effective component for the project management, a great integration between the budget and actuals, etc. Well, here's something like to share with you is that I've been self-isolated for more than 8 weeks. I've been experiencing stress, anxiety, depression because of me isolated and separated from the society. I cannot even get downstairs and walking in the gardens of my residence villa. So after 2 or 3 weeks of anxiously pacing in my own apartment, I chose to cook. I would say the taste is good, well, at least for me, but looks good, at least to me. So it's find something that I would say find something that will give you a small condolences, a small soothing, some sense of accomplishment, achievements that would, well, it really helps me to get through these 8 weeks of self-isolation. All right. If you have questions, things you want to discuss, you can always reach me at my email. Now, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, the next speaker, Stefania.
Hi to everybody. Thank you very much to Claire for inviting me to share my experience, and thank you also to Mark. I am delighted to be here to explain what we did in this last week. Then just a few words about Politecnico di Milano. Politecnico di Milano is a large university in Italy. You can see we have more than 45,000 students, and we are more than 12,000 administrative staff. It's a technical university. We are dealing with the topics on engineering, architecture, and design activities. We have 12 departments. Politecnico is the first university in Italy, and you can see also our position in the QS ranking. In the last years, we invested a lot to increase our activities in order to have a very high international recognition from worldwide. It's the first university also with the largest number of European H2020 project grants. That it's important now just to explain you how many research projects we manage every day. So more than 1,400 research contracts per year. That it's what we have now to continue to manage now in these days continuously. Just a few words about me. I have more of 25 years of experience in the field of research, leadership, and management. I am now 20 years at Politecnico di Milano. For the first years, I managed the university incubators. From 2007, the research office. In the last 5 years, I can say, I am really open and involved at international level. It was one of my objectives also to promote in the best way Politecnico di Milano, the research activities of Politecnico di Milano at the worldwide level. I chair now since 4 years a European networks as advisor, chair the advisory boards. It's the Crowd Lelix network. And I started 3 years ago to be involved, very actively involved in the NCURA network. For the first 2 years in the Region 8 network, the Region 8, international activities, and now I'm very happy to be selected in the global, in the selected committee for global affairs. Here you can just see pictures. We hosted just in December workshops on global initiative from organized with NCURA in our university. I decided to prepare my presentation following the weeks. Now it's 5 weeks that we are locked down, and then I decided to explain you the different steps that we follow that could be very useful for you also to understand better also the different steps that you can follow done in this kind of situation. The first official date for us was the 23rd of February, when we received the first communication from the prime ministers on the Sunday evening. This is the normal organization of our office. Compared to different offices in US or in another country, we manage everything at central level. We manage the pre and the post-award activities. Most of the important post-award activities are also directly managed by the department. We have 12 departments, but we start some years ago in 2014 also to manage the research development activity. This is very useful because for this different type of unit, research office unit, we took different decisions also in this last week. What we did in the first week, when we arrived in the office on Monday morning after the first communication, and for the first 2 weeks, we need absolutely to take some decision. We try to manage the difficulties that we had and understanding how we can accomplish all the needs, the daily needs that we had to manage our activities. First of all, it was very important to organize a meeting with everybody, with all the colleagues, and then single meeting with each colleague, because, as I said, it was important to understand which were the priorities and how we could manage everything. We need to be prepared to be allocated at home, then to be ready to work in teleworking, and understand exactly what is the logistic needs, because not all the colleagues are able to work remotely, and we were also not properly equipped. Then we immediately start to understand how many computers, laptop we need to both, to understand how we can explain to everybody how we can then remotely be in connection with all the colleagues and start to work together. We had a lot of difficulties at European level because if you remember, we were the first country, and it was very, very difficult for us to understand, to have so many problems in the lack of understanding also from Europe, from the European Commission. The deadline were not postponed. We immediately received so many cancellation at global level. I travel personally a lot, and I have several meetings booked in different countries, and immediately I received all the cancellation, and it was difficult to understand why, because it was also for us not so clear that it was a very dramatic situation, because the first 2 weeks we worked quite normally in the office. I had also to understand exactly also that's what this is important for, I think, for the research manager, for the head of the office, understand exactly, take the time to discuss with everybody in the office. I have 16 people, colleagues in my office, and then it was important understand what I can do, what we can try to propose to our general director also to manage the activity in the best way. And we didn't receive so many indication also for the emergency management, because in the first week we start with a shutdown, but not a really lockdown. Then the lockdown arrived. It was Wednesday, 11th of March. I understood in the afternoon that the situation could change. Then I immediately asked to all my colleagues in 2 hours to prepare everything, to take home everything. And we received during the night the message from the prime minister that everything was clearly locked down. Then we start for the last 2 weeks to work. Then everybody was at home. In a way, it was better, because manage the both situation is also not easy. Some people in the office, some people at home. Then it was easier. We were everybody in the same situation. As Benji said, everybody live in a high distance. Then we try every day to organize a lot. We use the Teams, Microsoft Teams platform here in Italy. We work a lot with this platform, with the colleagues, and I work a lot in this period, because I work more than 12 hours per day, because we have so many meetings. It's not so easy to manage everything. You talk all the day, and then during the night, I take the time to check all the emails. As he said also, Benji, some emails need to be deleted. It's difficult to manage everything. We receive a communication every day from our rector, giving us some indication. And he tried to to be positive. He asked us to maintain a high level of our work, and we have to continue to work with everybody like in the office. We start to receive some psychological support. It was established from our HR office, because everybody has to manage kids also, probably, and manage a daily life with family and stay home all the days. We have to we had different type of activities to do, because for the pre-award we start to request to all the funding agencies to postpone the grants deadline. Finally, at European level, they understood the needs, and we were more positive, because they understand that we need absolutely to postpone some deadline. On the first days we receive only 1 or 2 weeks more. This is nothing. Now finally they postponed 2 months later. For the post award, we had to change completely also the way in which we work, because we couldn't receive the auditors in our office. Then we had to implement online procedures for the audits, to upload all the documentation, the reporting, the expenses online. We have some privacy problem also to manage this kind of the audit. And it's in the first day we need to absolutely to understand the best way to work and find immediately solution. That I think I can say only thank you to all my staff, because immediately everybody was very, very engaged to find a solution and support, and we were supported, and we try to support each other. That was important. And another thing is that some department, the research activity start to go a little slowly, because some department, the research department closed, and other were converted in order to work for the emergency need for the hospitals. Because for example, in the chemistry department, we produce a lot of alcohol for the hospitals. Other department were converted, for example, aerospace, mechanical, to produce masks. Now we have just a question in this day to understand if the managing of European project or the research for some European project, for example, could be considered emergencies activities, because you can enter in the university only if the university is not closed, but you can enter only for emergencies activities. And in some ways, the output of some projects need to be concluded, because you can lose all the job that you did before. You can have 6 months more deadline, but we can postpone the deadline of the project. But if we lose completely the job that we did as in the research before, that could be a problem. Then we are waiting now the answer from our general director, just to understand if maybe some researcher could access to the department. But there are also then security reasons to take in consideration. Now for the next weeks, what we have to do now until the summers, we don't know when we can probably go back at the office. At the moment, it's not before the beginning of May. But we don't have clear indication. That is also something not easy to manage at psychological level, because someday you can be positive, the other day you say this is a long time that we have to continue to work and stay home and lock down in that way. That is also, I think, for the other country not clear at the moment. It's like Benji said, we can go out. We are closed. We are here closed. Then we just can go out to do shopping in the supermarket just to eat, but we can go out with the kids to go to walk or play in the garden outside here in the street. That it's very difficult. So we are lucky because the weather is not so good, but now if the weather then will be nice, it could be also difficult at psychological level. The first goal is for sure to defeat this pandemic virus, because I just saw the numbers 1 hour ago, and unfortunately they are not positive. You know, we are living in the red zone here. It's Lombardy region, and for the last 4 days we were a little more positive, because slowly the numbers decrease. But today again they say that probably they increase again, that it's very dramatic. It's stressful, because we have colleagues living also in some very difficult red zone. It's difficult to ask to these colleagues also to work every day, or to maintain a very high level or quality level of the activities. We need aber to be optimistic. This is my job. I organize every day with different groups of colleagues some talk. We discuss about we plan the activity that we have to do. We try to have contact together to share what Benji said. It's very important. We can't lose the normal daily contact between us. And we wait to plan also our summer break. You know, in Italy, the August period, normally we close everything. We can't plan nothing. We don't know when we can go back. Probably the online session for the students continues until June, and we are ready maybe to start not every days with different situations, that it's very difficult. So to understand how we can work in the future. For myself, for example, I travel a lot. I have twice a month. I am in Europe, or I just come back from US in January. And it's very difficult also to in the future to do plan and to understand how we can maintain these activities. We work a lot with companies, with industry. Our 1/3 of the income of our university come from research contract from the companies, and then we are sure we know they close now the companies, the production. Then we don't know when the university, when the companies could open again, and then for sure we will have less income also these years. Then after the summer, what's happened? That's we don't know, because we are rescheduling everything. Everything is postponed after the summer, and travels, meeting, conferences, and we don't know. We try to fix some dates, but we hope that we can maintain this new scheduling also. One of very big problem for us as European level, is this transition from H2020 to Horizon Europe, the new program, the research program from the European Commission, because we don't know if this program will start in January. We were ready to have all the training session in these days to be ready to prepare the programs and understand how it's work at European level. And we hope that the next call can start in January, but we will for sure also have probably a 6 months gap in these years. I think in the future, the founding agency need to convert the procedures, understand what they can do to be ready to adopt more online procedures, because it was not easy to convert completely the way in working with the founding agency. We need more involvement with the industries and ask them to be ready to invest more in research also. And for sure, encourage more global international opportunity. This is very, very important to continue to increase the collaboration with a lot of a European level for us at international level also. I think it's a way to and invest more in research. This is my contact details. You can then contact me when do you want. I am very happy to share my experience and to give some tips or support. Or I can imagine it's a difficult way for everybody to manage now, but we were sure that in the next months we can then see we can finish and understand that we can work together. Thank you, and thank you to everybody. And then I would like to pass the presentation to our next speakers. Jean, the floor is yours. Thank you.
There we go. So what I'm going to do is change gears a little bit and begin talking about the National Science Foundation and what a federal agency's perspective has been on COVID-19. I have to thank very much Jing and Stefania for their presentations and for providing the perspective of what an institutional and a countrywide outside the United States would look like. And I certainly am using this opportunity then to give that different perspective of what it will look like from a federal agency perspective. And I do have to say that I am presenting only NSF's perspective. I am not in a situation where I feel comfortable speaking about any other federal agency because we're all doing this a bit differently. So let me start from the perspective of what information we were waiting for and why agencies, in fact, some of them have not put out guidance, and I can explain to you very much why as part of this presentation. So it was vital for all of us at the federal agencies to have guidance provided to us from the Office of Management and Budget. We very much wanted to do that because the kinds of questions that were coming into us heavily, and I mean by the hundreds, had to do with cost flexibility, administrative flexibilities as it related to their NSF-funded awards. And we wanted to ensure that not only did we provide you accurate information on what you could do, but also provide you with air cover when COVID-19 has come and hopefully be gone very soon, that you were not receiving questions in an audit scenario about allowability of costs or what actions you took to administer your NSF-funded award. So it was vital to us. We heard the angst from the community, and very much wanted to make sure that we had what we needed in the way of guidance from the Office of Management and Budget. And in the very early stages, NSF worked with them on these issues. And so what you see on the screen here are two different memos that were put out by OMB, the Office of Federal Financial Management. These are not the only documents or memoranda that has been put out by OMB regarding COVID-19. What these two represent, however, are the ones most closely aligned with the administration and management of federal awards. The first document that was put out, M2011, was put out on March 9th, 2020. And what M2011 did, though, was have a very, very narrow scope in terms of what types of awards it covered. And the exceptions and flexibilities granted in that memo were only applicable to those awards that support the continued research and services necessary to carry out the emergency response to COVID-19. So the vast majority of NSF awards did not fall under that guidance. And that guidance that was issued on March 9th was very deliberately, narrowly crafted. We realized and communicated with OMB that while this was excellent for the awards that it covered, it did certainly not cover the vast, as I said, the vast majority of NSF awards. And so 10 days later, on March 19th, OMB did issue guidance that was much broader in scope. It really covered any kind of loss of operations due to COVID-19. And it's very much wide open now. It's also time limited. It is in 90 days. And then in June, and OMB has indicated that they will relook at this to see if release is still necessary, if other types of flexibilities need to be granted, et cetera. And I know OMB is doing a number of webinars themselves, including one at 12 o'clock today, where they will be going through all of the information that's presented in these memos in detail. But these particular memos provided the backbone of what we as agencies needed in order to take and apply these flexibilities. Now, one very important point for all of you listening today to understand is that this particular memo doesn't require agencies to apply these flexibilities. They offer the authority for agencies to take action, and that's why it's necessary for each agency to do so, to ensure that it reflects what it is that that agency believes in terms of applying these flexibilities. So on the next slide, we can look at what it is that NSF specifically did in response to COVID-19. And again, I can't emphasize enough how we received so many questions and the angst on the line, the please provide us a response so that we can move forward. It was so painful to have to say, look, NSF will put something out, but we are working with our other federal partners. And so I'm delighted to let you know that NSF has put out a significant amount now of guidance related to the flexibilities. Those are all available on the NSF website. NSF has, in terms of going through some of what that guidance had to say, was posted this week, as a matter of fact. And the first one I'd like to talk about was issued on March 23rd, on Monday. And it was an important notice to the community, entitled NSF Letter to Community Regarding COVID-19. It was issued by the director. And if you would go back to the prior slide, this important notice from Dr. Cordova really talked about this new uncertainty and upheaval as the spread of coronavirus disease 2019. It has been testing our communities, our workplaces. And she was very much talking to those in the community that our thoughts are with the healthcare workers and volunteers around the world who are working tirelessly to care for the sick and protect public health, for teachers who are struggling to teach in new environments and new ways, and with students who want to continue learning, with parents trying to explain to their children why everything will be different for a while, and why home is the safest place to be, and how encouraged she was by the many stories of people finding new ways to care for their families, continue their work, and support their communities. Then she specifically goes into what this challenge will be on NSF-funded research and facilities, and how we are committed to providing the greatest available flexibilities to support NSF-funded research. The next document referred to on the screen is our actual implementation of OMB Memo M2017. And it literally goes through step by step what it is that NSF is doing to apply these flexibilities. It is everything from flexibility with SAM registration, which will be an automatic extension of active registrations expiring before May 16, 2020. And a GSA that runs SAM will be taking the System for Award Management, will be automatically giving those a one-time extension of 60 days. That's vital, because when anything comes into our systems, whether it be research.gov, Fastlane, or grants.gov, we check to ensure that there is an active SAM registration. And so many are not able to take care of that. So this will allow the process, proposals to continue to be submitted to NSF without being blocked. A lot of concern in the community about deadlines and the desire to have every single NSF deadline extended. Well, NSF has heard that. And what we have opted to do is to really focus on those deadlines that really need to be extended. NSF has a document on our website called Impact on Existing Deadline Dates. We have extended 13 deadline dates, and we are processing 2 or 3 new extensions today alone. So when you look at the page and NSF's response, please remember, you need to check early and you need to check often. We have been updating literally our page every single day, at least once a day, because there is so much that is evolving in terms of agencies' response as we learn more, as we know more, as we figure out what issues really do need to be addressed in terms of how NSF is impacting the foundation. A couple of other things that I'd like to talk about in terms of the flexibilities and what NSF has put out on our flexibility implementation has to do with allowability of salaries and other project costs. That is another big area where we have received a huge number of questions and comments about charging of those. And we have gone literally verbatim with the OMB guidance in terms of authorizing our recipients to continue to charge salary stipends. And by the way, the OMB guidance does not have the term stipends in it. Ours does. I can assure you we have communicated with OMB, and the provision on charging of salaries and other project activities does also include stipends, that you are allowed to do those to currently active NSF awards consistent with the recipient's policy of paying salaries under unexpected or extraordinary circumstances from all funding sources, federal and non-federal. We have received a number of comments from folks that say, well, wow, it says it must be consistent with the recipient's policy of paying salaries. Our assumption is that this is an institution-wide policy for pay for all employees. Can you confirm this assumption? And yes. The answer is absolutely yes. Payroll distribution has always been based on fair and equitable distribution of salaries. And in times like this, one shouldn't expect time charged to federal awards to increase disproportionately to other funding sources of the employees. So it has to be aligned with your institutional policy. We also were required to tell you of the importance of maintaining documentation on the flexibilities that you do on your campuses. And also to be aware that there is no or should be no expectation that supplemental funding will be available. We similarly have received many comments on the allowability of costs not normally chargeable to awards. That is the single area that we have received the most comments on. We have invoked the language just as stated in the OMB guidance, and we want you to be aware that we also have had that emphasize that same importance of maintaining documentation, as well as the understanding that supplemental funding may not be available. So if you could go to the next slide, then we also have put out a tremendous number of frequently asked questions. I can tell you that a new set was posted yesterday to our website that addressed not only many of the ones that we've already received, but it also has a lot on, a great deal on what's going on with respect to our research experiences for undergraduate program. So I encourage you to take a look at those. On the next slide, we have put out a number of dear colleague letters that actually talk to rapid response research proposals, and these are areas where we are interested in having your faculty submit proposals, and I highlight those to you because I think it's important for you to make your faculty aware that those are out there. On the next slide, I go into what NSF's internal response. Very heartening to see that these are similar to what you have heard already. A lot of virtual. We have canceled all in-person panels now through May 1st, and that will continue to be explored as to whether that date needs to be moved out further. NSF-sponsored conferences are encouraged to be moved later or to be moved online. Our own staff, since the beginning of last week, have been now teleworking to the greatest extent possible, and you're only going into the building unless there is an absolute need to do so. And then finally, on the last slide, I talk about the challenges we're all facing. And these are all things that we very much need to address together. Staff working remotely is for some, they've never done it before. And the challenges and the connectivity, although we have great systems, they are a bit strained, obviously, with everyone working at the same time, but we've got great systems. That does not mean everyone in our community does, though. And we have to understand that there may not be policies in place at organizations and at the federal level to deal with every situation. And obviously, the key that we get every single day on our senior management calls, where we talk about NSF's response and how we're dealing with this, is just how vitally important flexibility within a policy framework is. And that absolutely must be key. So reach out to us, continue to send your comments. I have to say, posting of not only the NSF response and the implementation of the OMB guidance has certainly cut down the volume. We were getting hourly questions on, I had a conference that was canceled. How do I handle those charges? That is now addressed in NSF's guidance. And so the numbers of comments and questions have definitely decreased. They're still coming in, though, and we want them to come in. We want to know what areas have not been addressed so that we can continue to ensure that our guidance and our FAQ address those. So I want to thank you all very much and giving me the opportunity. And I know that Internal looks forward to future conversations of this nature with other federal agencies. So I'm turning it back over to Mark so he can lead the Q&A portion of this presentation. Thank you all very, very much for your time and attention.
Thank you all for your presentations. I apologize for the technical difficulty. It's interesting to learn how our colleagues are responding to pandemics across the country and around the globe. I wanted to ask our speakers the first question from our audience. Are there elements of your institution's disaster response and business continuity plans or practices that you've changed or are planning to change as a result of the COVID-19? Baizheng, would you like to start with a response to that?
Oh, yeah, sure. As I mentioned in my presentation, that a really good, well established and comprehensive ERP system would help a great deal. But also, I want a reliable carrier, a reliable ICT carrier, and also reliable apps, communication apps would help immensely to have this business continuity. Also, backup, have everything backup on the cloud would help a lot. We used to use the box, but that requires VPN. But you know, VPN using VPN is sort of illegal here in China. So Duke is very kind to offer the Duke VPN for us to use. But still, if I work from home, the VPN would actually limit substantially the bandwidth, the internet speed. So we need to. It would be good to have a substitute cloud, a substitute box here. Have a backup. Mark.
Thank you, Baizheng. The second question we received is for research administrators that have mostly submitted electronic paperwork for some time. What can you share that has worked well, and how did your office adapt to the new norm of submitting paperwork electronically? Stefania, would you care to comment on that?
Yes, thank you. um, we were lucky because in the last years and months, we implement more and more electronically access to the tools. And for example, at the moment, we didn't change a lot in our daily activities because everybody has access on the remote desktop to our computer in the office. We can see everything. We use in each email, for example, that we send out from our office to put, we have an account for the general office that everybody can see, to put it in CC, and then we can be sure that everybody answer to the emails. In order to manage the projects or the presentation of the projects or the audit of the project, we start to sign it electronically. We have the e-signatures. I can sign the documents through my phone. I have a code. Then we don't need to be there physically. We upload also. We were worried if we are able to upload everything also remotely from home, upload on the documentation in the founding agencies also website, and we discovered that we can managing everything electronically, and we don't need to have all this paperwork. The founding agency understood also this problem. That it's a way also probably in the future to change also the activity. You can discover that you can also work more from home and manage in an easier way, different way, the documentation. For example, the auditor now understood that they can receive all the documentation also by emails and check everything by emails and not be physically there.
Thank you, Stefania. Jean, the third question is for you. With the urgent need for PPE for emergency responders, medical staff, and at-risk individuals, our university would like to donate masks, gloves, etc. that we have on hand. Primarily, these supplies are purchased by the university, but some may have been purchased on sponsored awards. In such a case, what is the best course of action for the affected awards? Is it possible this could be approved as an allowable cost given the circumstances?
There we go. Sorry about that.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, so much for this question. And usually I'm much better with the technology than I am today. But thank you very much for the question, Mark, because it is actually a very timely one. As a matter of fact, we have received a few of these questions, and we appreciate the fact that everyone really is looking to see how they can help in this unprecedented situation. As you may be aware out there, the uniform guidance treats these costs under contributions and donations. And generally speaking, they are not allowable costs on federal awards for reasons that we can all understand. Agencies, however, do have exception ability under 2 CFR 200.102 to specifically approve and these kinds of costs. So if you have a specific request for an award, we'd ask that you reach out to your cognizant program officer, explain the situation, and they can work through what would be required for NSF to formally approve that request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Excuse me, our next question. Stefania, how is the current state of your country affecting proposal deadlines and post-award progress reports?
Now we receive for each main proposal, the European Commission postponed the deadline now in May. We had in this period several deadlines, and more or less we have 2 months more to prepare the proposals. In the post-award, just this morning, we received some communication from big founding agencies, and we are able to ask 3 or 6 months. In some projects, because the problem is in the final months of project that you are managing, or just 1-2 months before the deadline. In some case, the project officer of the European Commission contacted the PI, the principal investigators, gave him the opportunity to postpone the projects for 6 months, because normally in the final days you have to close everything or to do a workshop. That is a problem. Maybe organize a workshop organize a final workshop in your project, for example. Then maybe they can be organized remotely, but we asked for 6 months deadline, yes, to be ready to postpone the project under the end of these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. Another related question to this for you. How do you measure productivity from your post-award team while working from home?
The number of email, maybe, or it's we manage a lot of activities normally. In a normal day as office, we receive more or less 400, 500 emails, the 3 units together. And the number of emails, we increase the numbers, and we are directly linked with the financial manager of each department. There are also locally in the department a team, the post-award team, and we try to support them every day. And at the moment, we don't see problem. That is a positive things of our teleworking activities, because we discovered that we can more or less manage the 80% of our activities very well also from home. I think it's really, really important. It's that everybody see the email. We have a very big mailbox, but every day to check. But it's important because we immediately understand if somebody need help to answer to a question or not. And the post-award team is engaged to support each other to immediately send the answer to the PI or to the founding agencies or to the colleagues. We don't see problem in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. Beijing, I have a question for you. How do Chinese universities manage their existing animal protocols? Were research scientists on campus to care for the research animals?
That's actually a very good question. Right now, because almost all buildings such locked up, only essential personnel are allowed to enter into the building on campus. So the research staff taking care of the research animals are on that essential personnel list. Because those animals that certainly need to be taken care of. That's why the buildings for life sciences is still one of the few research lab buildings that are still operating normally. Thank you.
Thank you, Beijing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jean, we have a question for you. I believe. How is the virus impacting award decision periods? For example, in general, NSF tries to make award decisions within 6 to 7 months. Are delays confirmed? And broadly, should we expect a rerouting of federal funds for non-coronavirus related research to be redirected to coronavirus research?
Okay, so those are great questions. The first one is we are continuing to work the award process as normal. The panels that were scheduled to take place still took place. They were just all done virtually. But that does not mean that there will not ultimately be an impact, just given the huge changes that have been made to an electronic process. Now, understand that NSF is more electronic than many other agencies, but I think in terms of the timing, it's a little too soon to tell how significant the impact will be to our proposal and award process. Obviously, that is heavily being discussed by senior management. I sit on a committee with our deputy assistant directors, and we meet. We were meeting every day. Now we're meeting 3 times a week to discuss every single one of these issues. We have made extensions to submission of project reports for NSF for a certain category of awards. March 1st through May 1st will be automatically extended by 30 days, and we'll continue to assess those kinds of issues as well. In terms of the actual will funds be diverted, it will a lot depend on many of the on the actual language that appears in the supplemental funding appropriations that are currently being considered on the Hill, and that will definitely impact how much funding will be available for COVID-19. That's it.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Jean. Stefania, we have a question for you. How do you communicate with PIs regarding spending plans and research activities handled at your institution?
Sorry, could you please repeat? I didn't hear perfectly.
Sure. How do you communicate with PIs regarding spending plans and research activities handled at your institution?
We use the same, thank you. We use the same systems. As I said, I am 12-hour connected. Just this morning with the financial managers of a department at the PI, we had meetings through this platform, through 3 teams, and we checked the expenses of the project of this PI. We are very well connected with everybody. We manage at central level some very big ERC projects, for example, and we daily communicate with them. We send them Excel project budgets for the budget, and we try to support them in understanding if the expenses of some they can do these expenses in this period or not. We try to support them daily. Each colleague in my office has several tasks and know exactly which kind of project or which kind of activity needs to be managed, and we don't see a problem. The principal investigator, they are also very, very engaged. They understand the problems, and they try to find also to suggest solutions and understand what they can do exactly. Everybody is very transparent, because I think it's the best way to collaborate together. Just for example, this morning we are waiting an answer also to understand exactly from the European Commission which kind of expenses we can also reporting in a project, like Jean explained for NSF before, because we missed some activities, we bought some instruments, we can report in the reporting, insert the cost of some instrument in the laboratories, because for example, we don't use it at the moment, or then we try to find together a solution. I think the best way for everybody is to be committed it's very important to be in contact with everybody, because we are not physically there, and then we need to call everybody, send a message, ask if they need support, etc. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefania. Actually, related to that, and this is for really each of you, can you talk more about how you've tried to keep a team feel with your staff at this point? This person notes, we have a staff of almost 20, and it's really hard to feel connected. So I'd like to hear from each of you about how you're trying to keep that connection going. By Jing, why don't you start?
Yes. It's I would say by a routine online meetings, but also I want to keep the things a bit more not so formal. So I also have this WeChat group forming between my team, and also, for example, the faculties who plan to submit proposals this year. We have a WeChat group for them as well. We exchange and share information, and also the experience that we have preparing proposals or even encounter project management. But also, of course, email exchanges, even phone calls are necessary when we have something urgent that we need to deal with. Thanks.
Jean, you had mentioned that NSF is now remote. Do you have any suggestions on that, sort of trying to keep the team experience going?
It is a great question. It's something that we clearly are all wrestling with. And I think the answer to that is that, depending on how big of a team you're talking, we have utilized some of the online tools where you literally can see each other, and that actually does seem to help, because everyone's picture's there, and it's not the same, but it's close to being, as it can be, to being in person. The larger the audience, the larger the group that you're trying to convene, the more challenging and difficult that really is. They had a webinar yesterday for all supervisors at NSF, and so you had hundreds of people on the line, and the larger the group, the more challenging definitely it is. But we are working it hard by just trying as many different options and approaches as we can. And to the extent your group is small enough, having those video conferences really does seem to help the connection between the team or group, if you will.
And Stefania, you have any suggestions on this?
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's a good question, but I think I travel a lot in my normal life, and then I am a lot away from the office. And I think it was positive for me, because I immediately implement a good separation of the activities between the colleagues. I think you need to trust to your colleagues. You need to give a lot of responsibility. And it's my normal job. I continue to do the same things here also at home. Every day I'm contacting not everybody, but it's depend on the urgent activity or the priorities. And I plan everything with them, or I check what they're planned. And I think it's really important now to be there, also for the mood, to demonstrate that they are not alone, that we can do everything together and manage together and try to resolve the problem. I said that also it's the same. I work in the same day at the office. My door is every time open, and we try to find immediately the solution. I think we need to be quickly in that, but it's a good opportunity for now, for you, for the colleagues in US at home. It's to use this time to plan the activities for everybody, the manager, for the manager of the office managers, and trust the colleagues and give them the opportunity to to be ready to support all the professors. Absolutely, we session in this period, also training session, in order to learn how to use every tools, to use every skills, and also to learn more online from our NCP national contact points or through the founding agent. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Jean, I think the next question is probably for you. Are costs associated with setting people up to work remotely allowable? For example, computer equipment, internet service, webcam, etc.
The answer is most of the time, those are not generally allowable costs provided for this. And in fact, NSF staff also are in that same situation. So those are typically unallowable costs. But if you, in this time of uncertainty, if you have a question, go to on a cost question or even a general policy question like that, send it to policy@nsf.gov and we'll make sure that we get it added to our frequently asked questions.
Great, Jean. Another question for you. Do you expect that there will be delays in award issuance due to the changes in proposal review?
Well, again, there's not been huge actual changes in proposal review. We are doing our panels just as we did before. They simply are being done virtually. Some of them, though, may have had extensions. Now, that is where a potential impact. If as a result of moving to virtual, they had to change the time and extend the amount of time that reviewers may have to review a particular set of proposals, that may have an impact. But we have been watching this very closely, understanding that it's going to be a challenge on the end of our fiscal year, but we're looking at these and every part of the process very, very closely to see what the impact might be on timing for folks. So stay tuned for more on that. As we know more information, we will certainly provide it.
Thank you, Jean. And actually another one for you. Regarding donating PPE items, if our institution plans to, quote, pay back, as in purchase more donated items with non-federal funding, do we need agency approval for that?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're most documentation of all of this is going to be tremendously important, and I cannot emphasize how important that is in these particular scenarios. So ultimately speaking, if the documentation trail was that the NSF funded award was ultimately made whole, that would be that should be fine, but the documentation would need to support that. So that's really, really very, very important point that I can't emphasize enough for folks, is the importance of that documentation to how you're doing business and to what you're actually charging to the NSF award. That's
okay.
it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean. I think, let's see, we've got a couple more here. So this one is, I think, either for Stefania or for Beijing. How do you communicate with PIs regarding spending plans and research activities handled at your institution, given the circumstances?
As I told before, we continue to communicate by emails, by platform, by tools, in the same way that we use also in our office, because we are centrally, and then we can see them every day. But we continue to be there and to answer the question. as Benji said before in the presentation, maybe it's not easy to give the answer immediately because maybe we have to check better with colleagues. We have to contact other colleagues to understand what we can do. I'm really in contact with the financial manager that directly manage the project of the PIs. But yeah, we use all the facilities that we have that we have at home. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Stefania that we will use email as a formal way to communicate with PI. However, as I mentioned in my presentation, that we use the WeChat and QQ as a social media app to respond to PI's requests in a more unofficial way, so that so by doing so, we first show that we care about their requests and care about their issues, and we would take actions immediately once we receive their messages. But still, we will send them like a follow-up emails as a formal documentation to sort of documenting the conversations we had on WeChat, and send them conclusions or proposed solutions in emails. But like I said, now this not only happened to me, but also happened to many of my colleagues, that our Outlook malfunctions in the period of self-isolation in the past 8 weeks. So we combine the immediate social media app and email as a combination of the two. Thank you.
Thanks, Beijing. And here's our last question for each of you. What would you say are the top 3 tips you would like to share with your colleagues as we close out this webinar? So, Stefania, I'll start with you.
The 3 tips. It's be positive. Try to find the solutions. Maybe that could be useful also in the future. Plan everything. Maybe I'm thinking about plan everything. That could be useful in the future also to reorganize our activities. Maybe in this period we can understand that what are the real priorities in our life. I think, for us or in China, we understood what is losing the freedom, and then we try to reinvent us and try the positive things of this period, because we have to wait a long time, I think, before everything goes again normally. Then it's I think the mood, it's very important. Try to support the people that are very stressed, because everybody reacts in a different way. Be able to support each other, and I think everything, we can find a solution for everything. And we discover also in this time that not everything is so amazing important. We can also be more realistic and understand which are the real priorities in our life, in our jobs. Maybe take the positive if there's some positive things in this situation. Thank you.
I think you may have summarized probably everybody's thoughts there, but if there's you hit the nail on the head. I think I want to thank everyone for the questions that we've received. For those of you who we were not able to respond to your questions, we'll be sharing those questions with the panel and then asking them to provide some responses. And we'll post that information along on the same website where the slides and the webinar recording are. As a point of reference, one thing you might not all be aware of, but Incura has recently created a COVID-19 response community as a free online resource for the research administration community to share questions and ideas and innovative ways to manage through this unprecedented time. I'd like to, of course, thank our speakers, Bai Jing, Stefania Grotti, and Jean Feldman for these really important information and their willingness to share their time with us, given how busy everyone is these days. We are thankful to have all of you in our community, and thanks to those of you joining us and sharing your questions and experiences. I'd also like to thank my Incura colleagues behind the scenes for this program. Lastly, please stay healthy and stay safe out there, everyone. This webinar was produced by Incura, the National Council of University Research Administrators. For more information on our programs and resources, visit www.ncura.edu. Thank you very much.